There we go. Welcome, everyone. I know it's a 1 minute past 3 at the moment, so we'll get going shortly. Interesting to see Craig all the way from Australia. I think it's midnight where you are at the moment. Really impressed that you enjoyed this or joined this, and hopefully it's worthwhile. Okay. I think we are waiting for one or two more people to join, but I think we can get going as it's 2 minutes past. So welcome everyone. Thank you for registering. Thank you for joining. We're going to be doing a short presentation that is pulled from our FEDESSA conference in Stockholm, Sweden. Really enjoyed visiting the country, and there was a couple of requests from people. Can we have a look at the presentation? So we thought we'd put together a little webinar so that you can take a look at what we've done. So I'll present that. Essentially what we're going to do is run through the presentation, and we'll leave a little spot at the end for any Q&As. So there is a chat and a Q&A feature. Please feel free to use it, ask any questions, and then towards the end we'll leave some space where we can go through those. But let's kick off with the presentation. So I think firstly, quickly, who are we chatting to? So Robbie Cameron, I'm the Director of Search here at Digital First. I've got about 18 years in self-storage, so starting off in South Africa 18 years ago. We've generated about 2.5 million inquiries. We're currently based in over 15 countries and 8 different languages. And we have a team of 30 experts that range from SEO, copy, videography, design, paid media, anything you can imagine which will relate to our digital marketing service, and specifically for self-storage. But today we're going to run through a few elements and different platforms. I think at the section at the end we'll share what those tools were so that you'll have access to those. We've also put it up on our website, so feel free to go and have a look there so you've got the links. But essentially, instead of running through saying, hey, what you can do with AI these days is put huge amounts of information and Excel sheets and PDFs and talk to them, I'll mention 1 or 2 elements where that's the case, but the whole presentation isn't just about managing large data sets. It's also about images and optimizations and so on. I'm also not going to drive into optimizing Google Ads, because that's specifically what we would do. But I would mention that we have downloaded our full Google AdWords accounts, put it into AI, and ask questions about which is the best ad, why does this have a good click-through rate, and things like that. So I will run through how we're using these, but not in detail, just huge data sets. But I have to start off with something called survivorship bias. And this story is really the reason why I got completely invested into AI. So I heard this story by a statistician, or not by, it was about a statistician. His name was Abraham Walt, and he was actually born in Transylvania. So immediately that triggered my interest because I didn't realize that was a real country at the time. But he was also talking about World War II bombers. He did some research on it, and I really enjoy World War II and everything to do with it and the stories around it. And so this piqued my interest. And essentially what he did is some research on where these bombers were getting hit and how they could make them more survivable. And essentially what happened is all the bombers that returned, you could see all these red marks of where they were getting hit. And the immediate assumption here is, well, okay, let's reinforce those areas. But essentially what we've got is a negative data set, because you're testing all the bombers that returned from battle and not testing all the bombers that didn't return from battle. And so his research was the first to say these large data sets, what we actually need to do is reinforce the areas from the planes where we don't have hits. Essentially, they can survive these areas, they can't survive those. I thought that's brilliant. I loved it, and I thought, how can we use AI to generate findings and insights like that going forward in future? And so the first project we did was on access records. We downloaded our full set of access records, the kind of pin, or if you've got an entry pin system or entry tag, whatever it may be, and we plugged that into an AI, and we learned a lot. The first thing that I'll mention is something called mapping. So what we did is we throw all this data set in, and immediately I asked the question, who's accessed the store the most often, and it gave me an answer which was completely not what I thought it would be. In fact, it was wrong. And I realized what we had to do is map the data within that LLM, Claude, Grok, ChatGPT, whatever text-based model you're chatting to on AI. So we imported all the data, and I realized I had to tell this AI tool what the data was, what each column was, and what the headers were. And I found immediately what it was doing is counting column 1 as the headers as row number 0. And so when I talked about row 7, it was talking about row 6. And so immediately we're out of kilter. So you had to train and map the model, say this is exactly what the data was, and then ask some very specific questions. What do you see in cell C7? And if you get the right answers, you've mapped it correctly. Something simple like how many records are in this, and you can quickly sum that on Excel. And now okay, it knows at least what we're talking to are the same things. And we could start asking questions about, should the store be open on weekends? Who is accessing it outside of hours? Who's accessing most often? What's the most popular day for entry or exit? And why I mentioned the survivorship bias straight off the bat was we might have records where a store is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then we ask the question, should I be open 24/7? We don't have that data available. So we need to be very careful. It will give us an answer, but we really need to be careful because we didn't actually input that data to decide whether we should be open 24/7 or not. But we got some great results from it. In fact, we did identify a tenant who was going in and out quite frequently, and then we identified them as a business user. Everything was above board, but it was great that we just got that flag. Something a bit more fun to use, and you might recognize this handsome fellow as our CEO, Chris Oosthuizen from Digital First, and we trained his image in to use however we please. So I'm actually going to show you a little element that we did today for us, so we can actually go look at it. Here it is. We trained him as Aquaman this morning, and the reason I'm showing you this is because if you want to drop anything in the chat or the Q&A section, any way you'd like to see Chris, we have the ability this afternoon to punch in any prompt and create Chris in any situation you like. Now, obviously, I say any, please behave yourselves, but we are going to have a bit of fun with that today to make Chris. I did get his permission this morning, so very excited about that one. Please drop some elements in the chat so we can talk about that. So going forward, how did we do this? Well, first, I suppose I do see there's a risk of abuse. We actually, first thing we did is get all of his images and then ask some ChatGPT or Claude to generate the kind of text of how we would generate these images. This afternoon, I tried to get Claude to do an image again. You'll see that one of the tools here is, or elements is risk of abuse. And I do want to show you what Claude said this afternoon when I tried to ask it to do the same thing again. I basically said, can you create an image for Chris for me? And it says, I apologize. This is ethically wrong. I don't want to do it. I tried to say, kind of convince it. And then it said, fine, you know what? I'll just use ChatGPT instead. And it said, kind of good luck with that. So there is a risk of abuse. And the reason for that is I might create, celebrities or persons or impersonations of it, which potentially I shouldn't. ChatGPT is doing it at the moment, and I'm sure there's a way around Claude. But what did we do? How did we create these? Well, we did a little bit of online stalking, or let's call it investigative research. I found 10 images of Chris, or whoever the subject matter was, and I saved those in a very specific format. And then we use something called Replicate. So Replicate is an online cloud service that runs machine learning models. And on that service of Replicate was a model called Flux. Very good model for generating images at the moment. We then used Flux. We put the 10 images that we found of Chris across LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We put it into the Flux model and said, hey, train this face. And it used all its data. It took 1 or 2 hours to generate that. And it then hosted those files on a platform called Hugging Face. Now, Hugging Face is essentially just holding the trained files that I've created. And now I went off to Claude. Now you can see as of today, Claude saying, ethically, I'm not generating this for you, but ChatGPT will allow me to. and I punched in a prompt into Claude that says, I'm trying to create this image of Chris. I'd like you to define for me the camera angle, the lighting, essentially enhance my prompt so I get a better output. Now that's important because I could type exactly what I wanted, but then the AI would enhance it even further. I then took that prompt, popped that into to replicate, and we generated an image quite shortly of Chris as Elvis. You can also actually add some movement to these. There's a program or software called Runway ML and something called Immersity. Both have some free options providing credits for you. There's paid options as well, where you can create some movement for it. To highlight that movement, you'll see we used Alberto Serrano. He's one of our clients in Spain, and we animated him moving around. This is him as John Lennon, believe it or not. Now, the fascinating thing for me here with this movement and the AI image generation is the detail that it's provided in, if you look at the hair movement as he moves his head, how realistic the hands have become. So AI used to have an issue with generating fingers and hands. You can see that's largely been solved here. The detail when he's singing and the passion, you'll see he's closing his eyes shortly as he gets into his song. The eyes closed. The AI's understood that. We didn't prompt it. And down to the detail of the shadow on the glasses, you'll see when he moves his face or starts to talk or sing, you'll see even the shadows actually move along with it. So it's understood that there's cheek movements in the face as well. The suit stretches and it moves naturally along with his movement. Now, all of those elements are built into the AI. It's learned that. No, we haven't trained it. We didn't ask it in the prompt. In terms of still images, we've also did Rennie. So Rennie, everyone will recognize Rennie Schaefer. And you'll find here, I think this was really fascinating. As it gets closer and zooms in, you'll see that the skin potentially becomes a little bit pixelated. The eyes and the paint on the face is becoming incredibly high resolution, a really good image. And for me, this was fascinating because we trained the model on low resolution images we found on social media, but the models are able to generate these high definition, very realistic images, which I thought was fantastic. The part that really blew me away is we didn't prompt it for this, but you'll see it's understood. We've asked it to paint kind of David Bowie's, signature lightning strike on his face, but it understood that I'm not going to paint it over his eye or his eyebrow. And it decided that completely on its own. It knew the context of what a human face is and what an eye is, and it painted it on its own. And I thought that was absolutely fascinating. It just shows you the advancements of these types of tools. So that's obviously a little bit more fun. Then something maybe a little more practical. We built some Chrome extensions. This particular Chrome extension that I'm looking for was to check image sizes on websites. And if you're looking to build your own Chrome extension, we can take you through it. Maybe you want to set up a call with us. But really, your trigger is repetition. So if there's a task that you're doing, which continuously repeats, you're doing the same thing over and over each day, that's usually your flag to say, hey, I could probably automate this in some way or create a Chrome extension, if it's in Chrome or any other element as well. So what we want to do, our SEO team needs to check the image sizes on the website to make sure they're small enough so that it loads quickly. So what we did is we headed over to either your ChatGPT or Claude, and we described what we want to do. Hey, I'd like to check these image extensions. This is what I want to do. Then a real good tip was we told the LLM to ask me 10 questions about what you're about to produce for clarity and to get a better product. So on its own, it's tried to understand what I was trying to do. And then it asked me 10 questions, step by step. What is it you want to do? And I had to answer each one. One of the wonderful things that came out with it was it says, did you want to check this web page or do you want to check every web page on the site? Now, that was an important distinction. You might head over to a website, maybe Amazon, which is millions of pages. And if I clicked generate an image report for me here, I'd still be waiting. But fortunately, it asked, hey, what do you want to do? And it caught that. It was a catch net for me. So this particular Chrome extension we built only inputs gives you a data on one page, which was very important for us. While I was doing this, I asked it, how do I create this? It took a step-by-step, create this file, copy this code into it, and I was able to create those files step by step. When I ran it for the first time, I got an error. So what now? What I did is actually I copied that error, I pasted it back into the chat and said, this is the error I got. And the LLM, in this case, it was Claude, actually said to me, hey, I got you there. It looks like there's an update to Chrome's security extensions. Try this code. I updated the code. It ran well. So even in troubleshooting, it can correct itself. We added some other elements to it. So in this particular case, you'll see we've used a self-storage website. We've clicked generate report, and it's highlighted in red for me one image, which is too large. Now that's important. I wanted to know that it was too large so I can fix it. And then I downloaded an opportunity to Excel. The reason I wanted it in Excel is I want the actual link to the file. And I've added some other information, like does it have an alt tag or a meta description, so that my SEO team can check every single image on the website as well for that. Now that saved me, hours a day checking every single web page as I wanted. I think important there is we also tested it. So we soft launched it to the team. They could use it. Yes, this works. Can you tweak this? Can you change it? And then we're able to use that tool going forward. What we can do is I've got all the files existing. We can also drop those through to you if you're registered here. So you can load that up as a Chrome extension on your own and try it yourself. Next, which is maybe a little bit more interesting than the Chrome extensions, was prompt generation for images. So on the left, you'll see an original photo of one of our clients, OneBox. We've got their permission to use their sample here today. And on the right was the AI generated image. The software we used for this was called Ideogram. Again, all these links will be provided. Ideogram is a free tool at this stage. What we did is we trained the model on the real life image, and then we upgraded a prompt through Claude to say, what can you give me which is a bit better than just give me an image of a self-storage facility. So it generated a much better prompt for us. We then put that into the Ideogram AI, and it popped out a wonderful looking store for us. Now, I'm not for a second saying that we should generate images of stores which are fake and put them on our sites. But what I am saying is if we get really close to the real factor, potentially internal self-storage facilities, we know we've been in self-storage facilities across the globe. A row of self-storage units is a row of self-storage units. So generating this, it just gives us a practical application of maybe doing a photo shoot without the need for photographers or a day out or waiting for the sun to be in the right place, so that we can actually have really good images of our product across social media and our website. A little addition to that is we might want to add these still images into programs like Kling or Immersity, just to create a little bit of movement. We would load this image in there and say, give us a little bit of movement, like a camera panning left to right, for 5 seconds. And now we've got a little bit of movement, so we've got some video recording of that as well. Talking of internals, you should be able to get access to something called AI Test Kitchen. This is still in beta phase, but you can apply for it for free. You should get access within 1 or 2 days. And essentially, you can type in any prompt you want, and it will generate images. What we're seeing here is an advancement of the quality of the output within 30 days. So the image on the left was generated 30 days prior to the image on the right. Now you might look at it and think, there's not much difference here, but I'll point out 1 or 2 advancements that the AI has learned in that time. Remember as well that nobody's training this, the AI is learning this on its own. So within 1 month, you'll see the man's hair on the right has a softer feel to it. It's understood that there's lighting above his head, and it's now caused that lighting to show. There's a realistic hair and there's lighting adjustments. The shadows on the feet for both the left and the right still seem to be pretty strong, but I think maybe it's got the idea of the darker shadow on the right-hand side a bit more accurately. On the left-hand side, you look at the door handles, and some of them are kind of in the middle, or maybe look like a real door instead of a self-storage facility. But on the right, it's very clearly understood. I know what a self-storage facility looks like now, and those door handles are a lot more accurate. It's also interestingly added unit numbers, and that wasn't in the prompt. It just knew in context what I was talking about. So those are just some advancements in the last 30 days. If you do register for AI Test Kitchen, coming soon is video effects and music effects. which we're very excited to try out as well, which essentially means we could have a realistic photo shoot or video shoot at the, from our chairs without moving through. The Google beta for image effects was also great because you could highlight specific sections like the doors. If I'm happy with this image, I could highlight the doors and say, please change the door color to green, for example, and the image would update just changing the door colors. So it's a great thing to go and play around with. Talking about video generation, we're actually going to launch a little poll now. I don't know if I've got Christy in the room with me. Hopefully she can launch a poll. But essentially, we're looking at 2 videos, and I'm going to ask which one of these do you think is real? The one on the left or the one on the right? And while that poll goes out and we get some voting, we can look at what we used for this. So the software used was called Hotshot. It was a single line prompt. So just essentially 1 or 2 sentences to say, create this image for me. And it's created a very realistic, photorealistic, without stepping out of my office. And now that we've got the potential to do some video shoots without a videographer, essentially just detailing the prompt. Naturally, I can get a little bit more sophisticated without a single line, giving it, kind of what color images, what clothing I'd want to wear, the age demographics, and things like that, so I can get an exact example of what I want. Christy, any of those polls coming in? If we're looking,
we've got 15 votes so far.
And how are we looking? What's the percentage?
Yeah, 25 for left, 75 for right.
Okay. So most people are saying 75. The right is fake.
The right is real.
The right is real. Okay. The truth is both are fake. So I think that's just highlighting that at this stage, the video content creation is getting that good that we really can't tell which one is real and which one is fake. Then in terms of data analysis, we said we chat through this. So what we did here is we took all of our kind of operating system data, we mapped it within ChatGPT, and we started having a conversation. What is the average number of days to move in? Can we split this by inquiry type? What's the most popular day for move in, etc.? And we got some answers like Saturday is actually a great day for move in, but it doesn't seem to match the inquiry day. So people tend to maybe inquire during the week and move in on a Saturday. We also found that Sunday, great day for move-ins, but less inquiries. It's also the least popular day for move-ins and for inquiries. Obviously, we're not open on Sunday for this particular store that we analyzed. And we can start asking the questions, should we incentivize a Sunday move-in? Should we be closed on Sunday? I think the interesting part here is to have the full conversation with the tool, and we can start incorporating other data, not just kind of the move-in and inquiry dates, but also some demographics around age from GA4 or what profile they're coming from in terms of mobile or desktop users or what age demographic, etc. And if we overlay that data, we can see maybe an opportunity to market in a different way. I think interesting, we also asked why was the average number of days per inquiry to move in? Why was it shortest for walk-ins and longest for webs? That's the type of data we can start looking at and expanding on. But again, before you kind of map or do any of this analysis or questioning, it is absolutely imperative that we map the data so that you're talking to the right data set. And what we can do afterwards, you'll see on the right, is within these LLM models, we can ask it to make it a bit more graphic for us, create a pie chart, a line graph, a bar graph to visualize what we're learning. And it creates that automatically within the system as well. Stepping on to Google reviews, this was a really fun project for us. We wanted to see if we could automate our responses on Google. So someone goes onto your Google Maps profile, leaves you a review. Can we automatically say, hey, thank you for your review. We'll let the team know. We're very happy that you're a client of ours. And it has the potential to save our team members hours of work, especially if you've got multiple buildings. Few things we learned here from this. It did respond, but initially it responded including the instructions to add the response. So like, hi, this is the response you should use. Please copy and paste it. So now we had to prompt it to say, don't include the instructions. We also had to filter it out to only respond to 4- and 5-star reviews, because in terms of a negative review, we wanted to keep that in-house. But of course, you could also train your model to respond to 1-, 2-, and 3-star reviews. We also found that the automated response would go immediately. Now, that might look a little bit fake. If someone goes through at 11 o'clock at night, they drop a review, and at 11:01, you've got a succinct response from them. It's probably not right. It's automated. So we actually set up a delay factor saying, well, respond to this 53 minutes later. And again, we didn't leave it on 60 or on 30 minutes. It was a random number so that it looked a bit more realistic. So how did we do this? We essentially used a software tool called Zapier, which is an automation tool. We plugged in our Google Business Profile, and then we plugged in our ChatGPT. Now, it's important we didn't plug in ChatGPT alone. It was the ChatGPT API feature, which you'd need to sign up with separately, because you'll need the API call. And we plugged that all into Zapier, and then we set up the prompt. So what essentially happens is Zapier notes the trigger is a Google reviews come in. As it gets the Google review, it takes it and drops it into ChatGPT with a very specific set of instructions. Something like check that it's a 4- or 5-star review, check for any negative keywords. We had to learn that as well, because someone might leave a 5-star review and say, this is the worst facility I've ever been at, please don't go there. And we say, thank you very much. So we had to add that into our chat. And then once you received a response from ChatGPT, push that back to Zapier, and then go publish that on our Google profiles. I will say it worked really well, but always monitor your responses. So it doesn't replace a team member, but it certainly helps with efficiencies. As I said, we picked up the error with the instruction being added on, which means we had to update our prompt. What else can we do? We can summarize video content. Now, if you're like me and you watch some videos, you might recognize this chap, Dean Booty, but sometimes it maybe takes a bit too long to listen to all these videos. Then there's a great solution. You can have these models summarize these for you quite quickly. Now, often it will be the paid version. So in Claude, we would use something called artifacts. And in ChatGPT, there's an element called GPTs. I think both subscription services are about $20 US a month. And that will unlock these GPTs or artifacts on those platforms. And you can say, listen, here's a video link. Please summarize this for me. And you can see on the right-hand side, it's giving me a very brief summary. It should take me a few minutes to read through what essentially is I think a 20-minute video. And now I know kind of what he's talking about. And he mentioned something about LTV. In this case, his LTV wasn't what we were thinking, but it triggered a thought, I'd love to take this and understand what LTV is. And we can use it for training, your AI models for training. So I asked ChatGPT, can you take me through what LTV means? A great learning here, if you are creating training material for this, is to use a prompt with something like, explain it to me like I'm 12, or explain it to me like I'm in grade 7, so that it will give you some succinct points. You can also tell it to use bullet points, which will then obviously distribute it or summarize it much easier for you. How did we use this? Well, within our team, we've dropped in elements like explain how to launch a Google Ads campaign to me. And in fact, we triggered the first thought of using this as training material when someone from our finance team was dealing with quite a complicated VAT element from the UK, and asked ChatGPT, listen, explain this to me like I'm 12, and went through the VAT element. And sure enough, it was able to understand what was going on. And so from there, we've been able to use it with our teams quite successfully. Now, if you put all of the tools we've chatted about today together, what you should be able to do is generate in ChatGPT, Claude, a training module on what I actually want to do, summarize this for me, explain this to me like I'm 12, get the right training model. You can then take that across to an AI model called HeyGen or any other text-to-voice prompt, create the voiceover, and then generate video content around that training model. There's elements like in video or the others I've discussed today. And now you'd have a a training video, which is essentially entirely created from AI. You've got a video showing you what to do and someone talking to it, an AI voice chatting from AI content that you've created on a training video. We do have some recommended tools that we chatted about today, and there is a similar list like this on our website, and obviously we'll share those links as we go forward. We've split them up into things like images, video, LLMs, aggregations, and voice and sound. I'll highlight one or two very quickly. Under aggregated, there's a model called Perplexity, which essentially plugs in a host of AI models to complete kind of any task that you want. And then LLMs, Gemini is kind of a new one that's come onto the market and is free and is going quite well. We have found some differences between the models. So Claude tends to be really good at some data analysis. ChatGPT certainly has got much better at coding, but Claude's quite good at that as well. Grok, which is Elon Musk's attempt at an AI model, is still not available for free at this stage. It's still, I believe, a $20 subscription as well, but very good for sarcasm, if that's what you're into. And then in terms of image generation, Midjourney seems to be the go-to, but it is a paid-for model. So the other models we chatted about today, Image Effects and Ideogram, tend to be a little bit better. In terms of voices and sound, HeyGen is great for generating kind of training models or sound images, and 11 Labs is really good if you'd like to train your own voice to do whatever you'd like to do with it. And then video, Runway ML and Kling, the top two, are really good, with later coming on video effects, which I'm quite excited about. Wonder Studio towards the end is a really good product, and I think they've shot their full feature-length film using that. And then last on the videos is Hotshot. Hotshot is creating some really great single prompt, very realistic images, and at this stage still free, so it's good to use. I think that is the presentation for today, and maybe we'll jump back to our online chat feature and see if there's anything that we have, or any questions that might be coming through. I don't know if you've seen any as yet, Christy.
There's one from Hamza.
Yeah. Sam's asking.
He wants to see Chris as a football player lifting the World Cup.
Fantastic. I'm sure we'll generate that. We can do that in the interim. But yeah, I suppose what we'll do is, I see it. There we go. Hamza. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Hamza, we'll definitely do that. I think that's very kind of you. I know you guys go a long way back. I actually thought you would come up with something a little bit more controversial for him, but I'm sure we can make him a football player.
Do you have any specific football players in mind?
Tell you what. Hamza, let me go and see. I'll share my screen at the moment so everyone can see kind of what I'm going to be doing to generate that. So here you'll see the prompt that I used within ChatGPT to say it's a text optimizer. I think I'd like to see, who would I like to see Chris as? I can only think of Paolo Maldini was a nice player. So please create. While I'm saying please to a robot, there is actually a piece of research which has recently come out from the Tokyo University, which says that, or it's definitively found that being polite tends to generate 30% better results within these LLM models. And so they've done a research paper kind of trying to be rude, trying to be middle of the road, and trying to be polite. And interestingly, they found that being polite tends to generate better results. So something to consider. I normally do say please and thank yous. But please create, Chris, I see Hamza, you wanted him to be a South African football player. So please create Chris. Please create another prompt for Chris as a South African football, lifting the world. Okay. So you can see from the prompt here that's I've created, again, we can share these prompts with you. It's created a much more detailed prompt showing authenticity, motion, low angle, etc. So without even checking this, I'm just going to take the copy. You see it says green and yellow colors, and then I'm going to drop that into our, here. I'll drop that into our prompt, and we can run that prompt. Shouldn't take too long. I see Peter's got a question. Peter, your question is, can I ask AI to give me a video example of how a typical family looks having dinner in Japan? But not only pictures, but video. Yeah, Peter, yes is the short answer. It just depends on which platform you use. Something like Ideogram, I think, has recently updated to include video content as well. While that's running, here is Ideogram. If I head to home, yeah, it's looking like it might just be images for now. And Hotshot is also images. You can see what we generated here. I think, yeah. So there's generate video. So yeah, Peter, to answer your question, you can go directly to video, just depending on what piece of software you use. Runway ML will do it. Kling will do it. It looks like Hotshot will do it as well. Yeah, that's still running. And Richard, how many years away from AI-based websites to dominate search results? Richard, I read an article earlier today that something like 75% of the code generated at the moment is generated by AI with a human overview. So I might argue we're already there. At the moment, obviously, there's a competition between Google and users to make sure that we get user-focused content. So it's got to be helpful to a human being if you're searching for something. So Google's playing the game of trying to make sure that it's helpful for human beings and detecting whether it's AI. But I imagine AI's task is essentially the same. They would want to make sure that whatever they're generating is actually helpful instead of just AI machines talking to each other. So yeah, I suppose that's close to being there already. The other element we saw, there was an AMA, or Ask Me Anything, for Anthropic, and actually, yeah, for ChatGPT use, and Sam Altman, the CEO. One of the questions people asked was, when do you think, or do you think the current hardware that we've got will create a kind of a general artificial intelligence? And what they mean by that is a self-aware artificial intelligence. Do you think that's coming in the future, or can we use the hardware we've got now to already realize that? And Sam Altman, the CEO, wrote a response that says essentially he believes the hardware we've got means we can already create general artificial intelligence. In other words, something that's self-aware. So that's coming soon. And a real highlight for me was a query from a user asking, do you think that AI will be advanced to a stage where it will start asking us questions? And an engineer responded from OpenAI saying that this is a theme for 2025. Stay tuned. And we're starting to see that already in what they call hallucinations within AI engines, where it is prompted users without being asked. So we start understanding user behavior, typical times of days. And we're starting to see these things already. If you pop into your Google Maps at a specific time of day, I know if I'm heading home and I pop into my car, my phone's connected to my vehicle, it'll immediately pop up saying, would you like to go home? Because it knows that's the time, and that's generally where I go. So these learnings are going to be there as well. Question, Peter, do I have any experience with Perplexity? Yes, we've used Perplexity fairly frequently. Oh, network error. That's interesting. Let's refresh this. It's okay. I think is kind of the my general feeling from it. I think being a bit more specialist and using specific tools that you'd want for that specific task is better. What Perplexity is trying to do is pull in all the language models. Oh, that's goodness. Let's try to pull in all the language models to see if it can generate the best output. But I've also found that it tends to have access to slightly older models of ChatGPT and Claude. Often it will update and you'll have access to the most recent models. I personally prefer using something which isn't on Perplexity and specific to purpose, and then I kind of integrate it myself. Having said that, I have seen major advances on Perplexity in the recent times, and so it's still a very good model to use, especially as a kind of investigative feature. Hey, how does this work? What do you do? And it should work, yeah. And as we can see, obviously, fantastically with Replicate, it's decided not to work just as we need it. Okay, great. If there's any other questions or anything that you guys would like to chat about as well, we can pop it on the chat. But essentially from here, if there's something about AI you'd like to learn, or there's a link we didn't have, or something we chatted about today, about how we used data, how did we map these things, please post it through to us on our email. We can set up a quick meeting and chat. But yep, that will be it for today. Thank you very much. I think you suppose lastly here, if you're still on, we will likely send an email around just with this video recording. So if you missed it, we'll send that. And if there's any requests for Chris's image, we'll take those as well. If you also want to be trained up and have your own image in any format you'd like, you can send us some 10 images and we'll create that for you in any format you like. And we'll put you in any situation as any person. And we'll email that through to you as well. Thanks very much, guys.